And welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I'm your pal Dan L. This is my channel. And Warner Brothers has just announced all their superheroes henceforth will be transgender, including Kal-El. Am I joking? Well, you're going to have to go do your homework, aren't you? See, doing your homework does two good things for you. It expands your knowledge base and it helps improve your critical thinking skills. Today's video is entitled Compassionate Conservatism, Part 1. The reason I say Part 1, I don't know how many parts are going to be in this series of videos. I don't. I do know this is the most important topic for this channel. Not so much compassionate conservatism, but what is conservatism? What is the political right? And we're going to be dealing with that in these series. Now, I don't know. It could be just two videos, which henceforth, or hence part one. So there could be just part one and part two, but it could be part three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. I don't know how many parts to this subject matter, but it's very important to me. It's very important to this channel. It's very important, in my opinion, to the future as far as how it affects the Republican Party and politics in general in the United States of America. And I think the USA has an impact on the rest of the globe, but that's for you to determine the significance of that. Anyway, so let's get right to it. What we're going to do is I'm going to start off by reading you part of a transcript from a Rush Limbaugh radio show from December 10th, 2020, which was almost a year ago to the day. If we got in our time machine, we'd have to travel backwards almost 12 months. Right now it's December 2021. We're not quite to December 10th. And this is not I wish this was a Christmas. I wish I had a Christmas hat. I don't have a Christmas. This is just this hat is the um, representation of the gravitas contained in the phrase compassionate conservatism. So that tells you right up front. I don't have a lot of respect for compassionate conservatism because this hat doesn't generate a lot of respect. But since I don't have a Christmas hat, this is the best I can come up with, and we're just gonna run with this. So let's get right to it. This is Rush Limbaugh's part of his radio show from December 10th, 2020. This is I'm reading from the transcript or part of the transcript from that show. So, and I'm going to stop every now and then when something from the transcript stands out, piques my interest, and I'm going to comment on something that he said during his radio show. So let's get right to it. Rush. This is Rush right now. I have lamented countless times. You've heard me say it. The political class, the elected political class of Republicans, the rhinos, the never Trumpers, they don't think there's a crisis at all, folks. They don't think the country's in crisis. They didn't think that the attempt to get rid of Trump with a coup, a literal coup based on nothing, the entire made up out of nothing Russian collusion story. And then in quotation marks, there's nothing to see here, there's no crisis, there's no danger. Now, of course, that's Rush Limbaugh parroting what you would hear from elected Republicans. And by the way, I'm going to stop for 1 second and mention when Rush Limbaugh was saying, and he's completely correct, but when he was saying this, he didn't even know that after he died, John Durham, the Durham investigation, remember, Barr appoints Durham to investigate what happened in 2016. He did. Rush Limbaugh doesn't know that there'll be one, maybe I think there's two indictments. I'm not sure, one or two, right now, of political operatives who got the whole completely made up out of thin air Russian collusion narrative started. Both of them either worked for Hillary Clinton or they were operatives paid by a go-between, and the go-between was in service to the Clinton campaign. Basically, it's real simple. There were people who, at the direction of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign, were using their deep state connections. I mean, let's see, deep state, Department of Justice, FBI, CIA, NSA, every government organization was filled with Obama bots. Let me repeat that to you. Every government entity in the United States of America in 2016, and actually still to this day, was filled with Obama bots. People who can't think for themselves, people whose only goal is to have a permanent tyranny where Democrats are in control. So her people, the Clinton campaign people, they went to the government and to their friends in the media and said, hey, did you know Donald Trump is an agent of Putin? Now, in 2016, Rush Limbaugh and myself, and not just us two, but there wasn't a whole, we were certain, and actually there were many voters, millions. over 70 million. So the voters knew that this was ridiculous. They're like, what? Trump is an agent of Putin? You mean the guy who's a lifelong capitalist? The guy who's been anti-Obama? The guy who agreed with Reagan that communism was an existential threat? Sorry, that was Cranky Kitty in the background. You're gonna have to be forgiving about that. So Trump is the person working. So the Republicans, a Republican, is helping Russia take what? Control of the USA, which is another way of saying taking control of Western civilization? Not the Democrats, the people who for 75 years completely have fallen in love with communism, pushing communist narratives, pushing divide and conquer narratives. Not the Democrats, the people who during the Cold War were rooting for the USSR and China to win the Cold War. They weren't agents of Putin. It's the people who were fighting against the Soviet Union and Communist China during the Cold War. And after the Cold War supposedly came to an end, which it didn't, but it looked like, superficially, it looked like it. But after the Cold War superficially comes to an end, the Republicans are the ones now who want to bring communism, socialism, statism, authoritarianism, whatever you want to call it, globalism, elitism, whatever ism you want to call it, the Republicans who want to install this tyrannical government. Even though, and here's the one advantage I have over you. I'm not a kid. I was a kid once upon a time, but I'm not anymore. Now I'm old, and you know what I've seen in my lifetime? I've seen John F. Kennedy. I've seen Lyndon Baines Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Trump, Biden. I've seen and heard all these people talk, all of them. So when you have the knowledge, when you've lived a life where you've witnessed history in the making, and you've lived long enough, your bullshit detector, hopefully, because hopefully you've refined your critical thinking skills, your bullshit detector gets better as you get older. Hopefully, this isn't always true. I've got relatives. I had a relative much older than me who in 2016 wouldn't vote for Trump. You know why? They completely bought the fake narrative from the news, from the legacy media. I'm trying to figure out how to rephrase legacy media. I don't want to call it or mainstream media. I want to say he bought the narrative from the leftist political PR machine. But anyway, whatever you want to call it, being old doesn't guarantee wisdom or doesn't guarantee a refined bullshit detector. But for me, luckily, I've seen enough, heard enough, witnessed enough, been around enough people that I'm like, no, Trump. And again, it wasn't just me. I'm gonna let's give the credit to who deserves it. All the people who voted for Trump in 2016, and then again in 2020, there was a new false narrative, all that Trump. Well, I don't know. Trump had unleashed COVID. I don't know. What was the narrative? That Trump was trying to seize control of all the levers of power because of COVID-19? That was the narrative in 2020. That the reason COVID-19 existed was so that Trump could become dictator of planet Earth. Well, if that's true, why is he not in office? If COVID-19 was this insidious plot to take control of the entire world through some sort of bioweapon virus, and I'm not saying it's not a bioweapon, and I'm not saying it's not a manufactured virus. In fact, it probably is a manufactured virus, and it's a bioweapon. And yes, and we probably are the ones, but it wasn't Trump. Do you think Trump was down there working with Fauci every day to come up with a bioweapon to unleash? No. What would make sense to you on what happened in 2020 with this COVID-19? I mean, take a look at what COVID-19 did. It allowed the left and the right to say, you know what we should do in America? We shouldn't have people vote in person. What a stupid idea. People voting in person, going down to their local polling station and casting their vote in front of other people, their fellow citizens. That's stupid. We should just mail out a ballot to every single physical address in the USA and see what happens. So do you think that reality is going to help Trump? that we just mail out in every state, 50 states, all of them mailing out millions of votes. No. You hope if you've got even decent critical thinking skills, you're saying no. That sounds like something that would benefit Joe Biden. So the point is, false narrative in 2016, false narrative in 2020, and when Rush Limbaugh is talking on his show about the completely manufactured collusion the narrative of Russian collusion, he doesn't even know that John Durham is going to bring indictments against, I think it's two. I know at least one person who was an agent of the Clinton campaign, an agent of the Democrat National Committee, an agent of the left, controlled by the Hillary, either directly or indirectly through by the Hillary Clinton campaign. So let's get back to the Rush Limbaugh transcript. Meanwhile, their voters, the American people, think that there is a major threat, and they're right. And the threat is to the country at large and to our culture, to Western civilization, to the kind of country we're going to be. Are we going to continue to be the country of the founding, or are the communists going to succeed? Make no mistake, the left, however you wish to define it, but they're not just the Democrats, and they're not just a bunch of 60s hippies anymore. This has become a full-fledged battle between socialists and communists on one side and us on the other. And the fact that Republicans don't see it, the fact that elected Republicans, I'm talking about establishment Republicans, call them rhinos or whatever, they don't see it. I don't know how you miss it. But I think it boils down to the fact that they don't want to see it. They don't want to think the country is in crisis. They don't want to think the country is threatened. They don't want to believe any of this. So they just chalk it up to us being a bunch of kooks, a bunch of scaremongers. Now I'm going to stop for a second. What does this sound like when he talks about elected Republicans who just don't want to accept objective reality? Think of, this is the Christmas season, think of an 8-year-old child. I know I was 8 years old once, and you know what I was invested in? Believing in Santa Claus. And you know why? I had a reason to believe in Santa Claus. Santa Claus had been pretty decent to me. I had gotten some of the things I had asked for from Santa had arrived on Christmas Day. So when I was 8 years old, even though there was plenty of evidence surrounding me that Santa Claus was a fiction, when I was 8 years old, I found a way to believe in Santa Claus. And not just me, millions of 8 and millions of children to this day find a way to believe in Santa Claus. They find a way to tune out the truth, the reality, that Santa Claus is something that we've created. But the point is, elected Republicans are very much like 8-year-olds. They need to believe that Democrats, they're not bad people. Sure, once in a while they might have a bad idea, but they love America. They love civilization. They love progress. They love science. They love self-rule. They're not fans of slavery, even though the Democrats are the slavery party. They don't want to be tyrants. They don't want to turn the world into Rod Serling's darkest dystopian nightmare. No, those Democrats, they're gentlemen, because how do they speak to them in Congress? The gentleman from whatever state, the gentlewoman. It's all politeness. The Republicans orgasm over all the. By the way, do the Democrats reciprocate that politeness? No. Remember, think of the Democrats in the Kavanaugh hearings, or how about Joe Biden, who was a Democrat, in the hearings with Clarence Thomas. Go back and watch that stuff. The Kavanaugh. Even Amy Coney Barrett. Go watch how Democrats just sit down and share. Hi everyone, that person's a murderer. That person's a rapist. That person wants to burn down society. That person wants to kill women. That person's a racist. There's a Nazi. Pay attention to how Democrats treat other people who they consider the opposition. Then take a look at how Republicans. It's all lovely, gentle, well-spoken, mismanners, politeness. So this concludes part 1. Don't worry, we've got a long way to go. But this is the end of part 1. Come back for part 2 of the series called Compassionate Conservatism.